Messages from a civilization older than time. No one noticed the message at first. It arrived quietly, slipping into Earth's network of satellites, observatories, and deep space listening stations without causing alarms. There was no explosion in the sky, no strange lights, no sudden disasters. Just a pattern, small, repeating, and impossible. The signal did not come from a nearby star or a distant galaxy. It came from everywhere at once. Dr. Elias Morgan was the first to realize something was wrong. He worked at the Global Deep Space Array, a facility built in the desert where radio telescopes listened to the oldest echoes of the universe. Elias had spent his life studying background radiation, the faint noise left behind by the birth of the cosmos. Most days were quiet and predictable. The universe, ancient and slow, rarely surprised anyone. But that morning, Elias stared at his screen in silence. "What are you?" he whispered. The data showed a repeating structure hidden inside cosmic background noise. Not random. Not natural. It was layered, precise, and deliberate. The signal existed beneath everything else, as if it had always been there, waiting. Elias checked the timestamps. The signal was not new. It was older than Earth. Older than the Sun. Older than the galaxies themselves. His hands trembled as he ran the calculations again and again. Each result confirmed the same impossible truth. The message had been traveling since before time, as humans understood it, even began. Within hours, Elias contacted Dr. Layla Hassan, a theoretical physicist known for questioning the limits of time and reality. She listened carefully as he explained, her face growing pale with each sentence. "This can't be artificial," she said quietly. "No civilization could exist before the universe formed." "And yet," Elias replied, "this one did." By evening, the discovery was classified. Governments were notified. Scientists were flown in from every corner of the world. The facility transformed overnight into a fortress of security and secrecy. They called it the primordial signal. No one slept that night. The next day, the signal changed. It adjusted itself, responding to human observation as if it knew it was being watched. New layers appeared, mathematical sequences beyond known physics, patterns that bent logic and defied known dimensions. Then came the symbols. They were not images or sounds but concepts, compressed into data. When decoded, they formed ideas rather than words, feelings of vast age, patience, and observation. Layla was the first to understand their meaning. "It's not a warning," she said, her voice barely steady. "And it's not a threat." "What is it?" Elias asked. "It's a greeting," she replied. "One that has been waiting for a mind capable of receiving it." The room fell silent. Humanity was not being contacted by aliens from another planet. They were being acknowledged by something far older. As decoding continued, fragments of information emerged. Visions of stars forming, universes collapsing, realities folding into one another like pages in an endless book. The signal carried memories, not just messages. The civilization behind it did not live in time. They existed outside it. They referred to themselves only once, using a concept that translated loosely as the first witnesses. According to the data, they were born when existence itself became aware. They did not build cities or ships. They shaped laws of reality. Gravity, entropy, and time itself were tools they once adjusted, then left to run on their own. And humanity? Humanity was not an accident. Earth was not random. Life was an echo. 3 days later, the message reached a new phase. A clear directive emerged, translated into simple human language for the first time. "You are nearing the threshold." No one knew what that meant, until the next line appeared. When a species learns to hear the universe, it must decide whether it will speak or remain silent forever. Across the world, subtle changes began to occur. Dreams became vivid and shared. People reported seeing the same symbols in their sleep. Children spoke of voices that felt ancient yet gentle. Artists painted shapes they had never seen before, all matching the same impossible geometry found in the signal. The first witnesses were no longer just speaking to scientists. They were speaking to humanity. On the 7th day, the final transmission of Phase 1 arrived. It contained a choice. Not for governments. Not for leaders. For the species as a whole. "We have watched civilizations rise and fall across countless realities," the message said. "Some chose power. Some chose silence. Few chose understanding." The signal paused, as if waiting. "If you wish to hear the next message, you must answer." And for the first time in human history, the universe waited for a reply. The world reacted in confusion and fear. News of the signal leaked despite every attempt to contain it. At first, people dismissed it as fiction or propaganda. But when scientists from rival nations confirmed the same impossible data, denial became impossible. Religions argued over its meaning. Some called the first witnesses creators. Others called them demons. A few said they were simply reflections of humanity's own future, reaching backward through time. Governments panicked. Meetings were held behind locked doors. Military leaders asked if the signal was a weapon. Economists worried about collapse. Philosophers asked questions no one could answer. The universe was waiting, and no one knew how long it would wait. At the Global Deep Space Array, the scientists were divided. "We should not answer," said General Robert Hale, representing the World Defense Council. "Anything older than time itself is beyond our control. Silence is survival." "And if silence is interpreted as fear?" Layla asked. "Or ignorance?" Elias remained quiet, watching the signal pulse softly on the screen. It felt alive, not aggressive, but aware. "They didn't demand," Elias finally said. "They invited." "Invitations can be traps," Hale replied. "But traps don't wait billions of years," Layla said. The argument continued for hours. No conclusion was reached. Meanwhile, the signal continued to evolve. It began transmitting simplified concepts, basic mathematics, logic structures, and eventually symbols resembling human language. It was adapting, learning how humans thought. It was patient. Outside the laboratories, the effects deepened. People around the world reported moments of strange clarity. Some claimed they could feel time slowing or stretching. Others experienced memories that were not theirs, visions of dying stars, collapsing universes, and endless darkness followed by rebirth. Scientists noticed something disturbing. Human brain activity was changing. The signal was not just heard. It was being understood at a biological level. "The message isn't external anymore," Layla said during a briefing. "It's synchronizing with human cognition." "Is that dangerous?" someone asked. She hesitated. "Everything unknown is dangerous," she replied. "But so is ignorance." On the 10th day, a new fragment arrived. This one carried emotion. Not words, but a feeling so heavy it silenced the room. Sorrow, regret, loneliness that stretched across eternities. "They are alone," Elias whispered. Data confirmed it. The first witnesses were not many. They were few. Most civilizations older than time had vanished. Some destroyed themselves by mastering reality too quickly. Others chose to erase themselves to escape the burden of infinite awareness. The first witnesses remained not because they were stronger, but because they chose to remember. And now they were reaching out. That night, the signal spoke directly. Not to machines. To minds. Millions of people heard the same message in their thoughts, translated perfectly into their own language. "You are not early. You are not late. You are exactly where you must be." Panic spread. Some screamed. Others fell to their knees. Many wept without knowing why. The message continued. "We do not seek worship. We do not seek obedience. We seek continuation." The meaning became clear. The first witnesses were fading. They existed as echoes, sustained by observation and memory. Without successors, they would vanish, not violently, but quietly, like forgotten dreams. Humanity was not being tested. Humanity was being asked to inherit something. At an emergency global assembly, the question was finally asked aloud. What happens if we say yes? No one answered immediately. Then Layla spoke. "They teach us," she said, "how to see beyond time. How to prevent cosmic collapse. How to guide reality instead of being crushed by it." "And the cost?" General Hale asked. She met his gaze. "We stop being just human." Silence filled the chamber. The final message of Phase 2 arrived moments later. Every species must choose its role. Observer. Shaper. Or silence. Below it, a symbol appeared, simple, glowing, and unmistakable. A question. The universe waited again. And humanity realized that answering would change everything forever. The world stood at a crossroads. For the first time in history, humanity faced a decision that no individual could make alone. The choice was not political, not military, not religious. It was existential. At the Global Deep Space Array, Elias, Layla, and a council of the world's top thinkers, scientists, and philosophers gathered to discuss the answer. Observer, Layla explained, pointing to the symbol on the screen, means we watch and learn without interfering. We understand, but we do not change the flow of reality. It is safe, but we gain little. Shaper, Elias added, his voice heavy, means we take responsibility. We guide, we manipulate, we evolve. We become something beyond humanity.
And silence? Asked one of the council members.
We simply do nothing.
Yes, said Layla.
And then the first witnesses may vanish. They will wait no longer, and their knowledge will be lost forever.
The room was tense. Even the air seemed to hold its breath.
Outside, the world struggled to comprehend the incomprehensible. Across the globe, ordinary people felt the signal too. Many slept uneasily, haunted by visions of cosmic events spanning billions of years.
Children whispered secrets in unknown languages. Artists painted impossible landscapes.
Scientists dreamed equations they had never learned. The first witnesses were awakening something in human minds that had always been dormant. It became clear, humanity could not remain the same.
Even saying nothing would change the species.
The first votes came, not on paper, but in thought.
People focused. The signal allowed it.
Those who felt called to observer felt calm, cautious. Those drawn to Shaper felt a pulse in their chest, a pull toward responsibility that was both terrifying and exhilarating. Some chose silence, overwhelmed by the weight of infinite time. At the array, Elias observed. It's happening, he whispered. The species is answering on a subconscious level. The choice isn't political. It's instinctual.
Layla nodded.
The first witnesses designed it this way. They want true understanding, not compliance. Then, something unexpected occurred. A group of humans who chose Shaper began to change, subtly at first.
Their thoughts became faster. Their perception of time stretched.
One scientist described seeing centuries pass in a single blink. Another said she could hear the movement of atoms. It's contagious, Elias realized. The signal is amplifying those ready to evolve. But with evolution came danger. Those unprepared began to experience mental strain, confusion, despair, sometimes even madness. The first witness's power was too vast to simply contain.
In a private chamber, Layla confronted Elias. Do you think we're ready? She asked. Elias shook his head. We can't be. No species has ever done this.
But maybe, we have no choice.
The universe is asking, not demanding.
And if we fail to answer, everything they've preserved dies with them. The signal pulsed again, glowing through the array's monitors. You may shape reality.
Or watch. Or vanish.
And then, for the first time, it gave instructions.
***, combine. Merge.
Learn together. The first witnesses revealed that observer and shaper were not truly separate. True evolution required balance, some to guide, some to learn, and all to remember.
Humanity's future depended on unity. The council debated.
What if the shapers go too far? Asked one representative. What if they destroy themselves, or us? That's the risk of life, Layla said quietly. The universe risks nothing. Only those who dare may inherit knowledge. Elias stared at the monitors. He understood that the first witnesses were testing not just intelligence, but character. Could humanity act responsibly when given infinite power?
The signal waited. Patient. Eternal.
That night, the first true transformation occurred. A volunteer, chosen by no one, drawn by the signal itself, stood in the center of the array. The lights dimmed. Screens flickered. The room felt infinite, as though the walls had vanished and the stars themselves had bent down to touch Earth. And then, she saw it. The universe. Not as humans perceived it, but as it truly was. Layers of existence folded like pages, timelines stretched and folded upon themselves. She felt the presence of the first witnesses, neither threatening nor distant, guiding her mind toward understanding. When she opened her eyes, she spoke a single word. Ready. It was humanity's first answer. The next morning, the world noticed a subtle shift.
It began with those who had chosen Shaper.
Their movements were deliberate, their words precise. They spoke of concepts too vast for ordinary humans to understand: the structure of galaxies, the flow of time, the hidden order behind chaos.
Some feared them.
Others were fascinated. Governments tried to monitor and control them, but it was impossible. The Shapers no longer obeyed ordinary rules, they were no longer fully human.
Elias and Layla watched carefully.
They are changing too fast, Elias said, worry shadowing his features. If we don't guide them, they could break themselves, or worse, break the world.
Layla shook her head. They aren't breaking. They are learning.
That's the point.
We were never meant to guide them.
The first witnesses are letting this happen naturally. The array screens pulsed with the signal. Symbols and patterns flowed like liquid, adjusting in real time as the Shapers' understanding deepened. Teach, remember, balance, the message instructed.
The Shapers began to communicate not just in words but in thought.
Ideas passed from mind to mind with clarity and precision impossible to achieve with speech. A consensus formed in hours, a network of understanding that transcended borders, languages, and cultures. Outside the array, humanity reacted with a mixture of awe and terror.
Some embraced the changes.
They began learning from the Shapers, absorbing fragments of knowledge.
Medicine advanced overnight.
Climate solutions appeared almost magically. Energy systems shifted as if the world itself had been tuned.
Others resisted.
Religions denounced the Shapers as heretics.
Governments banned contact. Fear sparked conflict.
But it was clear, the Shapers were unstoppable. They had already begun altering reality in small, imperceptible ways, rearranging molecules, redirecting energy, even adjusting the flow of time in localized areas. At the array, Layla and Elias faced a moral crisis. We can't predict the consequences, Elias said. We don't even know the limits.
Layla's eyes were fixed on the main monitor. Limits are irrelevant now.
The universe gave humanity a choice.
Some accepted. Some didn't. That's all that matters.
Suddenly, the signal shifted. The patterns grew more intricate, folding in ways humans could barely comprehend. All must choose their path, it said.
Those who cannot bear knowledge may watch.
Those who cannot watch may leave. Those who choose must accept transformation.
It was clear now.
The first witnesses were preparing humanity for something greater than survival. The first Shaper demonstration occurred the following day. A volunteer stood in a vast chamber, alone. He focused his mind, guided by the signal. The air shimmered. Reality bent. Objects shifted subtly, obeying his thoughts. Light twisted. Gravity fluctuated slightly. For the first time, humanity witnessed direct manipulation of the fundamental laws of existence. The demonstration ended with silence.
No one spoke immediately. Then came the whispers.
He changed reality. She altered existence itself. And everywhere, people felt it, an awareness that the universe was no longer constant, no longer untouchable. Meanwhile, the first witnesses revealed their purpose more clearly. We did not survive for ourselves, the message explained. We survived to pass knowledge, to guide a species capable of stewardship, to continue what we cannot.
It was not an invitation. It was a responsibility.
And humanity, in its collective consciousness, understood the enormity of the choice.
To remain human and ignorant. To become observers and learn without acting.
Or to evolve and inherit the mantle of the first witnesses, shaping reality itself, but at a cost that no one could yet measure. By the end of Part 4, the first group of Shapers had fully integrated their new awareness. They moved among humans like gods and teachers, bridging gaps in knowledge while leaving fear and awe in their wake. But questions remained. How many would choose to transform? Could humanity handle the knowledge without destroying itself? And what would the first witnesses truly demand when the time came to pass the final mantle? The universe waited, patient as always. The first signs of change rippled through the world almost immediately. Where Shapers walked, cities hummed with new energy. Machines operated with impossible efficiency. Crops grew in deserts.
Oceans purified themselves. Diseases vanished almost overnight.
Humanity witnessed miracles, but miracles that carried an undercurrent of unease. For some, the Shapers were saviors. For others, they were a threat. Governments tried to control them, but it was like trying to cage the wind. No walls, no weapons, no authority could contain minds that bent reality. At the global deep space array, Elias and Layla monitored every signal. They are accelerating too fast, Elias said, pointing to a stream of data showing quantum distortions spreading worldwide. If we don't set boundaries, reality itself could become unstable.
Layla frowned.
The first witnesses wouldn't allow it to destroy itself. But this is the first time they've allowed a species to act independently. We're witnessing the birth of something new and dangerous.
The danger was subtle at first.
Minor anomalies, people seeing events out of order, objects shifting inexplicably, time itself feeling inconsistent.
Then came the first tragedies.
A shaper, experimenting with gravity manipulation, accidentally caused a building to collapse.
No one died, but hundreds were injured. Panic spread. Fear began to rival awe.
Meanwhile, a global debate erupted. Some humans chose silence, believing that any transformation was too dangerous. Others became observers, hoping to understand without participating. But the Shapers kept growing in influence, their abilities expanding in ways no one could predict. News outlets and social media flooded with conflicting reports, miracles and disasters, wonders and fears, impossible visions and warnings. Humanity was dividing. One night, Layla confronted Elias in the quiet of the array.
"Do you see it?" she asked.
"The more people fear, the more the signal grows. It's feeding on attention, on awareness."
Elias nodded.
"It's not just a message anymore.
It's a force.
And the first witnesses, they've given us a test we can't fully understand."
A new transmission arrived.
It was different, urgent, sharp, almost impatient.
Balance is essential.
Too much in one direction will undo the rest.
The Shapers must guide. The observers must learn. The silent must reflect.
The universe is not kind to imbalance. It became clear. The first witnesses were not simply giving knowledge.
They were imposing rules.
If humanity failed to maintain harmony, their gift could become a curse. In several cities, unprepared Shapers began experiencing what the signal called displacement, moments when reality shifted around them in ways they could not control.
Streets inverted.
Buildings flickered.
Time looped briefly.
Those who had chosen observer roles were safe but powerless to intervene. Silence offered protection, but at the cost of understanding.
Elias and Layla realized something terrifying.
The first witnesses had never given their knowledge lightly. Every civilization before humanity had failed, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked balance.
Power without wisdom had destroyed them.
"We're the first species to have a real choice," Layla said. "And failure isn't just death, it's erasure. The universe will forget us if we fail."
Elias swallowed hard.
"Then we have no right to hesitate." The first council of Shapers was convened. Their task: teach, guide, and stabilize. But even among themselves, the Shapers struggled. Their newfound abilities came with temptations, shortcuts through time, reshaping reality to favor themselves, bending the world to personal visions.
Some resisted.
Others faltered. The first witnesses' message was clear: humanity's evolution was fragile.
Balance was everything.
And the universe, eternal, patient, and unyielding, was watching. By the end of Part 5, humanity had entered a new era. A world where some could alter reality, some could observe, and some chose silence. A world where knowledge older than time carried both wonder and peril. A world on the edge of transformation, or collapse. The choice was no longer theoretical. The consequences were real. The world had changed, but not all for the better. Months after the first Shapers emerged, subtle tensions began to surface. Fear and awe had kept humanity united at first, but the reality-altering powers of the Shapers were creating divisions.
Some nations attempted to control them. Some people worshipped them.
Others despised them. The balance the first witnesses demanded was slipping. At the global deep space array, Elias and Layla observed the first signs of catastrophe. "Look at the energy flux in the Pacific sector," Elias said, pointing at a cluster of data. A Shaper tried to stabilize a storm and overcorrected.
Entire ecosystems are shifting.
Layla's eyes widened. If this spreads, the imbalance could cascade globally. And the silent, they won't know how to help. The signal pulsed urgently. Imbalance detected. Intervention may be required. It was the first time the first witnesses had ever intervened directly. In New York, a Shaper named Mara attempted to reverse a flood caused by a collapsed dam. Her powers were extraordinary, but she miscalculated. Water flowed upward, twisting gravity in the city. Buildings swayed, people panicked, and time seemed to stutter in blocks of seconds.
Observers could only watch.
Silent humans were paralyzed by fear. It was a minor disaster compared to what could have been, but it was enough to ignite global panic.
Governments acted. Military units tried to contain the Shapers, but conventional weapons had no effect.
They were already obsolete in a world where thoughts could bend reality. Protests erupted.
Fear of the Shapers became violent.
Some Shapers attempted to calm the chaos, but their interference only worsened the imbalance.
Layla turned to Elias.
We were warned. Humanity was never meant to evolve this fast without learning restraint. And yet, Elias replied, this is exactly the test the first witnesses designed. We must learn control, or fail entirely. The signal grew more insistent.
You are unprepared. Balance is not instinctive.
You must guide, not dominate. Observe, not ignore. Silence, not avoidance. The Shapers realized the magnitude of their failure. Some withdrew, meditating to restore harmony. Others were overwhelmed by power, struggling to control the reality they had begun to shape. In these moments, Elias and Layla understood the first witnesses' true teaching. Knowledge alone was not enough. Understanding, empathy, and patience were essential. Across the world, ordinary humans began to experience subtle awakenings. Observers who had merely watched began to sense the changes in reality and to anticipate Shaper actions. The silent, previously passive, started to reflect deeply on their role. Humanity was learning, but painfully. The first witnesses intervened subtly, appearing in the signal as patterns, symbols, and brief thought transmissions.
We do not act in your world.
We guide your minds. Learn before the next collapse.
It was a warning and a lesson.
Humanity could survive, but only by embracing balance, by teaching and restraining, guiding and observing, thinking and listening. That night, Elias and Layla sat beneath the night sky, watching the stars. Do you think we're ready?
Elias asked softly. Layla shook her head. Not yet. But we are learning.
And the first witnesses will not wait forever. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the universe, a civilization older than time itself waited. Patient. Eternal. Watching whether humanity could pass its most important test yet. The world had reached a breaking point. Months of small disasters, imbalances, and panic had left humanity exhausted. Governments had given up trying to control the Shapers. Fearful citizens either worshipped them or rebelled. Yet something remarkable was beginning to happen. Humanity, for the first time, started to act as a single entity. At the Global Deep Space Array, Elias and Layla coordinated a global experiment. We need to teach balance, Layla said. Not just to Shapers, but to every human. Observer, Shaper, or silent, it doesn't matter. We must synchronize thought, action, and purpose. Using the signal as a conduit, they connected Shapers and observers into a network of awareness. Across continents, humans began to sense each other's intentions, thoughts, and feelings. For the first time, coordination at a global scale became possible, not through technology, but through consciousness itself. The first test came in the form of a natural disaster. A massive storm, intensified by prior Shaper miscalculations, threatened the eastern coast of Asia. Shapers, working independently, could not contain it. Observers tried to anticipate shifts, but isolated knowledge was insufficient. Then, as Elias activated the global network, something miraculous occurred. Thoughts, intentions, and understanding flowed like a river. Shapers stabilized the storm while observers guided them, predicting imbalances before they happened. Even the silent contributed by remaining calm and reflecting, creating a stabilizing presence in the collective consciousness. The storm passed with minimal damage. Humanity had acted in harmony. The signal pulsed with approval. You have begun to understand. Unity is not uniformity. Balance is not control. You are learning the first truth of existence. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but everyone involved felt it, a resonance of agreement, a gentle vibration through minds connected to the network. In the weeks that followed, the network expanded. Humanity's awareness began to stretch across the globe. The Shaper's abilities became safer and more precise. Observers developed an intuitive understanding of universal laws. Even those who had chosen silence felt the shift, finding purpose in reflection and stability. Elias and Layla marveled. This is evolution, Layla said. Not just of the mind, but of the species itself. Or, Elias replied, it's the first real test. We're only at the beginning. Then came a revelation from the first witnesses. A new transmission appeared, not as symbols or words, but as a thought that touched every connected mind simultaneously. You are ready for the next stage. The universe watches, but you are no longer alone. You may inherit our purpose, but only if you understand it fully. Images flooded consciousness. Endless galaxies forming, civilizations rising and falling, knowledge older than time itself preserved through care and observation. The first witnesses revealed their ultimate goal. They had survived not to dominate, but to teach stewardship. Humanity was being prepared to become custodians of reality, to protect and guide existence where even the first witnesses could no longer intervene. It was a responsibility beyond imagination, and one that humanity now had a chance to accept.
But the message also carried a warning. Power without wisdom destroys. Knowledge without restraint annihilates.
Balance is your inheritance, but only if you choose it willingly. Across the globe, humans understood the choice they faced: evolve fully into shapers, observers, and silent guardians acting in harmony, or risk losing everything they had just learned. The awakening of unity had begun, but the ultimate transformation, the true step into something beyond humanity, was still ahead. The moment had arrived. After months of learning, failing, and relearning, humanity had begun to understand the weight of the first witness's gift. Shapers, observers, and the silent had united, forming a global network of awareness. Humanity had glimpsed the infinite and survived, not just surviving, but evolving. The universe waited, patient and eternal. At the Global Deep Space Array, Elias and Layla prepared for the final transmission.
"This is it," Layla said. "Whatever happens next will change everything. There's no going back." Elias nodded.
"We're ready.
Humanity is ready. And yet,
I still feel small." The signal pulsed softly, then suddenly flared across every screen, every device, every connected mind. "You have chosen unity.
You have balanced power with wisdom.
You have learned patience and restraint. You are ready to inherit the mantle." For a moment, silence fell over the planet. Humans everywhere felt a shift in perception, as though the veil separating them from reality had lifted. The transformation began quietly, within the mind. Shapers extended their understanding to subtle manipulation of matter and energy. Observers guided, anticipating outcomes with perfect clarity. The silent maintained harmony, ensuring restraint where ambition might overreach. Together, they formed a consciousness greater than any individual, a mind of the species, capable of shaping and protecting reality itself. Elias felt it first, the sensation of existing in multiple places at once, of seeing time not as a line but as a vast, flowing tapestry. He understood the weight of responsibility, the fragility of balance, and the infinite possibilities before humanity. The first witness's presence became palpable. Not as beings, but as resonance, a gentle guidance echoing across the networked consciousness. "We taught, we guided, we waited.
Now the stewardship is yours.
The universe will continue, and you will preserve it." Images of civilizations older than time, universes rising and collapsing, and the endless cycles of existence passed through human minds. Knowledge too vast to speak, yet perfectly understood, flowed seamlessly. Humanity had inherited memory, wisdom, and the responsibility to guide existence. But the gift came with a final lesson. Always remember, power without understanding is destruction.
Wisdom without action is wasted.
The balance of creation is fragile. Fail, and you erase yourselves from the tapestry you now hold. And then, as subtly as it had begun, the first witnesses receded. Their signal did not vanish, but it became dormant, like a seed planted within consciousness, awaiting new challenges, new growth. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. They had become custodians of reality. In the days that followed, the world transformed. No longer bound by ordinary perception, humans reshaped cities, healed ecosystems, and stabilized climates. Disease, famine, and conflict began to fade, not by force, but through collective understanding. Time itself felt more malleable, yet ordered. The shapers learned restraint. Observers maintained foresight. The silent reflected, grounding humanity's actions in patience. Humanity had inherited something older than time, a civilization not of flesh but of awareness. And in doing so, they had become something more than human. Elias stood under the night sky, looking at the stars as he had so many times before. "They are gone," he whispered. "They never left," Layla replied. "They live in us now." And somewhere, in the infinite stretch of the universe, the echoes of the first witnesses smiled, not in sound, but in resonance, knowing that their legacy had a future. Humanity had stepped through the threshold into the endless possibility of time, knowledge, and stewardship. The universe would never be the same again.